Hey guys, welcome back to Eversoul. In today's video, I wanted to talk about artifacts and the artifact wish list and what I have on my wish list and just some general thoughts around it. Now, keep in mind, we're not at like the end game, so we don't know what the end game meta is going to look like and what's going to be optimal. So one option is you can just save a bunch of artifact summons and wait until we get there. The thing with these games is though, if you do save for stuff, you can always infinitely save because there's always going to be something else. So at some point you will have to go. So for those who are wanting to use their artifact summons and beef up their power right now, I'm going to go through what I'm using, some thoughts around some different artifacts on characters that maybe you're investing in, and just basically have a general chat about it, things that I think are good, things that I think maybe not so good. But like I said, it is still early days and this could change once we get to endgame, so just keep that in mind. So firstly, let's jump over actually to my wish list and I'll show you what my wish list is. Unfortunately, it's a bit botched in this system where we can't actually click the ability and see what it does. So at the moment on my wish list, I have Naya, Adrienne, and Chloe. Now, the Adrienne one is, I'll show you where I'm going to, because the reason I've got Adrienne in there is because I've seen people using her at Elite in Chapter 15, and so that gives me enough confidence to use her at least till that stage. I know running out of dupes when we start ascending other heroes will make her fall off, but I'm just doing it for that early period. Plus, the original concept of my account was to use, you know, angels and demons and hopefully wait for a system for summoning them, but that is kind of shifting. But I still left it on. Basically with hers, I'm going to go until I get to legendary, what is that? EE plus, legendary plus. So this one here, to get the immunity to knockbacks. It's not huge, but it's just that one little extra step up where we get a nice bonus effect that I'm going to. Now, I wouldn't recommend for most people to go for Adrienne, especially if you don't have her. And even if you do, keep in mind that she will probably fall off unless we start getting those dupes, which you can get some from the Labyrinth store, but you know, eventually she is going to drop off. But that's just the reasoning behind why I'm doing it. Keep that in mind. Now, the other two that I have on my wish list personally at the moment, and like I said, this is not guaranteed the way you should do it. This is just my thoughts. The first one is going to be Naya. Basically, I'm doing Naya until I get to this legendary plus range. And then maybe in the future, I'll take her to this one because 6 seconds would be nice. But this one basically to counter some stages would be really nice because basically when she gets attacked, she's going to go invisible for 4 seconds, gain some energy and put enemies within 2.5 meters to sleep for the same duration, which is 4 seconds. Like I said, 6 seconds would be nice. But honestly, if you get maybe have an assassin hit her, yes, she can normally go invisible and they'll target someone else anyway, but maybe you want them to sit on her because she can't get killed. That's going to be nice. However, this will also change the way she's played in that sometimes you can leave her in the back row. Something like a Jacqueline will attack her, she'll go invisible and Jacqueline will run at someone else. Not too sure on how I like that interaction, but the main reason I really like this one is for enemy angels. If you have Naya in the back row, the enemy angel, Adrienne, is going to pull in your Naya, and that way you can just do a big AoE sleep at the start of the battle to the enemy team, which I feel like is pretty solid utility. So that's where I'm going to take her to. It does take a long time to get there because from the Elite Plus, from the Legendary to the Legendary Plus upgrade, it's about 400 pieces. So it does take a while. That's all I'm planning on this so far. So I've got those 2 units that I'm just trying to get here. Like I said, I'm planning on it taking a fair while to get there. So, you know, we can take our time and then we can reassess when we want to look at the final 3 upgrades on some of them. So the next one that I want to look at is the one that I'm using, which is Chloe. Now, Chloe's is absolutely fantastic. I just see every level. I honestly see Chloe being one that I'm going to leave in until I get her completely maxed. The thing with Chloe is the way her passive works and her taunt just makes her such a good tank. And I see it being a long time before she gets phased out as an optimal tank for a lot of teams. The fact that she can just taunt all enemies no matter where they are is fantastic. And then also she has the passive that when she falls low, she's going to get that health recovery and the damage mitigation. However, the thing about this is having this artifact, the better you make this artifact, the more likely she is to survive. I notice at the moment for me personally with my Chloe, even though I do have this artifact at I think Epic Plus, or maybe it's only Epic still, but even with this little shield, she sometimes just dies to the onslaught from the early use of her taunt. So even with her passive, it just doesn't operate fast enough. So stacking this shield as high as possible is going to make her more usable at higher deficits. Also, once we get the extra mana, that's going to be great too, because one, she gets the shield, so she'll mitigate a bunch more damage, but then she can also get to her ult faster, meaning she can stun the enemies around her, or knock them down, sorry, and buy herself that extra bit of time for that passive to start generating the health for her. So I just see Chloe as being a hard tank to pass up on, and I can see her being meta long term. I could be wrong once again, but she's just one of those units that I think is incredibly valuable, and the more you invest into this artifact, just the better she gets at her job. And I can eventually see like a sort of meta evolving where you're using teams like Chloe, and then the rest of your team is just damage, and Chloe's just there to take everything the enemy can give and hopefully survive, and the artifact is going to be huge for that. And then the idea is your back row just tries to delete the enemy team as fast as possible while Chloe takes all the pressure. I can see that being a kind of thing. Once again, with all this stuff, this is just me looking into the future. I could be wrong, but Chloe's one that I'm definitely leaving on my wish list personally for a very long time to get that thing as high as possible, max out the stats. She's a tank, she needs it, so that's what I'm looking at there. Moving on past that, another one that I think is very valuable, and this is one that I'll probably swap out my my Adrienne for, and if I didn't have Adrienne in there, this is one I would go for, and that is going to be Vivian. Now, Vivian obviously got her nerf to her ult, but her ult is insanely high damage. The fact that it did the whole board, it still has a very broad AoE, and quite often I can make it hit all the enemies. And the other thing with Vivian is I never use her ultimate as the first ultimate of the game anyway, so it's normally later in the game when there's less enemies and they're more grouped. So I still think her usage is perfectly fine. She provides all that haste and all that sort of stuff, but returns 500 mana when using cutting wind blade is used, and this goes up to 2250. As my understanding is, it's 10,000 mana to use an ability, so she is going to generate mana super fast. Just every level up on this is just going to keep making her better, and obviously the last one gets a bump up by 500, which is really solid. But I just see Vivian as being a very relevant unit in the game for a very long time, and that's why I really think I would put her in, and that's why I'm going to sub her in next. I just think it's really valuable, and the more you invest into it, the more you're going to get out of it. Once again, as always, take it with a grain of salt, because I could be wrong. Moving on to a couple others that I'm looking at and I really do like, and honestly I could talk about everything at this stage and talk about if you're using the unit, it could be good. But a couple ones that benefit the team really well. The first one is going to be Meffy. Meffy just basically adds a defense reduction on enemies. Really solid, just keep scaling up. It's another one of those ones kind of like Vivian. The higher you get it, the better it is. Now I think this one's fantastic, and if I was someone who rolled on the Meffy banner and I had a bunch of copies and I knew I was going to get her ascended early, I'd probably have her on instead of my Adrienne at the moment, because this is just a great effect. Just increasing the damage of your entire team overall is fantastic. Moving on from that, who else did I want to look at? This one here, so Nicole. So Nicole's another one that I really like. Increasing the crit damage that enemies take is a really solid one. I feel like that's going to be relevant in bosses and stuff like that. But once again, that's a very early on take. I'm not too sure. Just leave that one with it. This one I wanted to talk about, which is Tali, because Tali is a great unit, and early on in the game, you can use Talia as a carry, and she can use her ult, and she's dealing damage and all that stuff. I just don't like this. So this one is Starry Arrival Day, which is her ultimate. So the fact that her artifact skill only applies to her ultimate, I don't like. Anything where the artifact skill is tied in solely to the ultimate, it's like, I'm just not sure on it, because one, you won't be able to use it in arena. Two, it requires you to use that ultimate. And like I said, Talia is an ultimate that I don't really use that much past the early game. So that's like one of those ones where, yes, it becomes a stat stick, but I still don't like the stats that much, because if you're not using her ultimate, you don't really need the crit rate, crit damage, and attack, or the attack still applies. No, she heals based on her HP. Talia's max HP every 2 seconds. Yeah. So Is this 1 HP or... Yeah, so I just don't think it's a great one. I know Tali is a great unit, but I think she's one that you don't really need this for. Once again, could be wrong. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to say that disclaimer a lot. But, you know, there's a lot of units, that, like I said, past that I could talk about. Those are just the few I wanted to talk about at the moment. You know, you can get into niche picks when we start talking about maybe some PvP units and stuff like that, and stuff that you can use in PvP. For instance, something like Ira, I think a maxed out Ira could be really relevant in PvP because basically her debuff stops enemies recovering mana. That could be really, really solid. But once again, that is so far down the road, and I'm not willing to make a bet on endgame PvP meta and start gambling towards it now. But like I said, let me know your picks. Let me know what you guys are using. That's just a few of them. There are a lot more good ones in there. This is also based on the type of team I'm using. If you're not looking at using a fairy team, then you might not be looking at the ones that I'm looking at as well. It's because I'm primarily focusing on fairies. That's why I'm looking at things like Chloe and Naya as my two top options. But once again, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your options. Like I said, even something like Jacqueline's could be really nice, but just got to wait and evolve it. But that's what I'm using. That's what my thoughts are at the moment. Like I said, things change so fast in this game. Let me know your thoughts. Mines are not correct by any means. I just wanted to let you guys know what I was thinking. So thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one.